What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bass. And today's video, got another underwater video for you. Today we're going subsurface to look at soft plastic worms. Through the years, Matt and I, we've got some amazing underwater footage and really been able to just go through it, watch it in slow motion, and have really dissected and learned a lot of information from bass. You know, the best teacher out there is the bass telling you, yes, they like something, or no, they don't like something, right? Are you getting bit or are you not getting bit? So through the years, we've collected numerous underwater fish eats, and just, I'm not sure you learn more from the bites than the fish ignoring your bait or the fish swimming away from your bait, but you take all of that data and you can apply it to your fishing to help, hopefully, apply that to your fishing and help you catch more fish. So some things that we've learned along the way, we're going to talk about the different styles of worms. We're going to talk about the different types of worms, maybe colors of worms through the spring. That way, this video will help you guys through that winter into that pre-spawn spring transition, how we're going to adjust our worm sizes and colors. But underwater footage, it's an amazing tool. Very, very hard to get, but it's an amazing tool. And like I said before, you can learn so much from just diagnosing and just inspecting and watching that footage in slow motion. You know, you can tell when a fish is aggravated. You can tell when a fish likes a lure or doesn't like a lure. Watching its dorsal fin go up and down, watching how the light penetrates the water and how there's different reflections and how it refracts off of the bottom. There's just so many things that you can take into consideration. How loud your footsteps are on the deck of the boat, right? Everything. People closing rod locker lids, all that stuff you can hear in that underwater footage. But today's video, soft plastics and how you can apply it this time of the year to catch more fish. So today's video, I'm breaking it really down into two categories: drop shots and Ned rigs. Wintertime fishing, for me, when I'm throwing a finesse bait, a finesse worm, I'm downsizing my worm. You know, through fall into that winter transition, these fish are totally keying in on bait fish. You know, if you're a lake that has 8, 10, 12-inch trout, they're probably keying in on trout as well. But for the most part, these fish are keying in on threadfin shad, little baby bluegill, baby crappie, you know, real small sized fish. And that's why I downsize my soft plastics this time of the year. You know, as we get into spring, we're going to start throwing some 6-inch worms, a little bit bigger worms, some bigger shaky heads, that sort of stuff. But right now, we're downsizing. I'm throwing smaller drop shots and Ned rigs if I'm finesse fishing on the bottom. So let's talk about Ned rigs real quick. Then we'll jump into worms and then transition into a little bit bigger worms and some tips on that sort of stuff. So like I said, this time of the year, I like small finesse baits. Again, unless I'm throwing a big heavy jig, even with that, I'm still throwing a finesse football, a light wire hook. But I'm throwing baits that are in that 2.5 to 3.5, 4-inch range. Doesn't matter if I'm throwing a drop shot or if I'm throwing a Ned rig. Okay, nice little drop shot bait, little Ned rig bait. But you can see really, really small profile. And again, it's because these fish are keying in on smaller bait. Now, it is very important to understand with these cold water conditions, everything down there kind of slows down. So it's really important to adjust the action of your worm, no matter which category it's in. Maybe it's in a shaky head, or it's whatever you may be throwing. Even if it's not a technique I'm talking about today, adjust your worm to the action of the season, okay? What I mean by that, slow down in the winter, speed up in the spring. As those water temps drop, the action on your baits needs to drop or slow down. As those water temps go up, You can get a little bit more shaky with your worm, get a little bit more action with your worm, because things are going to get more active in that ecosystem down there. So really easy. Temps drop, slow down. Temps rise, speed up, get more active, okay? So apply that to your fishing. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do, because it's all based on where you live. You might be in Southern California or in Arizona fishing water temps in the 60s or 70s right now, where there's other guys that are drilling holes in ice fishing water in the mid to high 30s, right? So there's all different seasons out there, but take this information and apply it to your season, to your fishery, and you'll catch more fish. So again, if you're throwing a drop shot and you're in those water temps anywhere from like low 50s to mid 30s, slow down, right? If you're in the water temps a little bit higher than that, warmer than that, go ahead and speed up. But getting back to the worms themselves, the actions themselves, slow down. A good tip that I've talked about for years, it's really helped me to slow down. It's, for me at least, it's really hard to slow down because I'm always thinking about what my next stop's going to be. Maybe they should be eating this, or maybe they could be eating that, or maybe I should be throwing this, or maybe I should try that. I'm always thinking and processing. All the while, I'm sitting there shaking the worm as I'm trying to think about what I'm doing, right? Big no-no. So for me, what I've learned is to drop that rod tip in the water and really slow down. You can see your rod tip shakes. You can see how much action you're giving that worm, okay? Now you go subsurface, you look below the water, you're checking out that bait. This time of the year, in that sub 50s water temp, you want to slow down that action. So I go with, let's talk about Ned rigs first, and then we'll kind of go into the drop shot. So for me, a killer bait this time of the year, and all these baits work year round, but I kind of adjust. I'm going with a dead action Ned rig. This is the Yamamoto Ned Senko. Not a ton of action, the fish munch it. But I don't want a Ned rig down there that has a ton of flap, right? A ton of movement when everything down there is moving slow. So that little guy right there, put that on an 1/8 or 10 ounce jig head and just fish it slowly, right? Just pop it up, just fish it slowly. Your Ned rigs this time of the year, you want them just kind of sitting there, kind of creeping along bottom, and those fish are gonna cruise in, kind of inspect it, and then just suck it up, right? The cool thing about the Ned rig, having that exposed hook, is even if those fish try to spit it out, that hook usually catches on the way out. So you kind of have a saving grace right there to kind of still give yourself one more shot to get that hook to penetrate and catch that fish. So the Ned rig is awesome this time of the year, especially when you're slow fishing. As we transition into a little bit warmer water, this guy right here is my go-to Ned bait. If I can even get it out of the package. This is the X Zone Ned Zone. High float, little subtle action right there. See that? Little subtle in that bulbous tail. That thing drives the fish crazy. Even if you're not giving your bait any action at all, the current, there's always some kind of current in your body of water. Even if it's not a river system, you're gonna have wind one day and not the next, and that water's gonna push and flush different directions in that body of water, and you're gonna have current subsurface. You'll see it. We see it all the time. Even in ponds, we see current. But you just want that little subtle action on your Ned rigs. Those fish just have to eat it. Now, last but not least, as we go into spring, that's when I kind of go with some kind of Ned rig that has, this is actually the Missile Baits Ned Bomb. This bait is killer. It has a really subtle tail on it, right? But when you shake this thing, it gets ultra aggressive. So wintertime, we're slowing down. We're going with the kind of that do nothing dead action type of worm Ned rig. As we get into spring, as we get into these warmer months, start working on those different types of Ned rigs, and you guys will catch more fish as that water warms up. Okay, hopefully that makes sense for you guys. Now let's apply what I just talked about to our drop shots. And again, all this information can be applied to your Texas rigs, can be applied to your ribbon tail worms or your creature baits, your lizards. But right now we're talking about Ned rigs, and then we're going to talk about drop shots and straight tail worms, okay? So, like I said earlier, I'm throwing drop shot baits downsized. I'm throwing bait fish sized drop shots, whether it's the Rains bubbling shaker, has that real subtle tantalizing tail, right? Doesn't have a lot of action. When you're just barely moving that rod tip, this thing is just barely wiggling in the water, okay? That is a great bait. The Missile Baits Bomb Shot. What you're going to see in these last 2 or 3 baits, you'll see some common body shapes, okay? Let me pull this one. This one's actually the Big Bite Baits Smallie Smasher. You guys have heard us talk about that bait for a long time. So this is the Smallie Smasher and then the Bomb Shot. 2 of my favorite drop shot baits when I'm around fish that are keying in on bait fish sized profile. Missile Baits Bomb Shot, you can see that paddle tail down there. And then the Big Bite Baits Smallie Smasher, a little bit smaller of a profile. Anytime you're fishing around bait fish, those styles or these types of worms, see how they have a flat bottom? They just sit there horizontal in the water and they just subtly just move, right? You can get a lot of action. You can get that tail kicking, but right now we're talking about subtle action, slow, subtle action. And those are 2 of my favorites. Those fish just kind of come in, that bait just kind of shimmies, they look at it, just shimmies, and they just suck it in. It is amazing. And then last but not least, another cool bait, this guy right here. This is the Hot Shot Minnow by X Zone. Again, another smaller profile, a bait that sits horizontal in the water. Now, that's one of the biggest things I've learned, guys, looking at underwater footage, is these baits, they're created out of different types of plastic or different density plastic, right? As the water temps get colder, these baits really stiffen up. Think about, I don't know, think about, I guess, a rubber band, okay? Or something that you stretch. If it's cold, it's not really going to want to stretch or move a lot. But if it's hot, it's going to be really easy to stretch. So same thing with these plastic worms. They're going to have a lot more movement, a lot more flexibility in warmer temps. So one thing that we've learned watching underwater footage, especially in cold water, is not all baits work well in cold water. So that's why I really want you guys to key in on these baits, because some of them just kind of lay vertical to your line, right? A drop shot's supposed to lay, here's your line. Drop shot's supposed to lay horizontal. You don't want your bait sitting there like that, especially if you're not shaking it. You don't want to be fishing a bait this time of the year. You have to be shaking to keep that thing up and moving. So these baits right here are key. With that said, I'm going to transition into hooks. My next tip for you guys, especially watching this underwater footage, is hooks can overpower the best soft plastics, okay? If you take a 2X or a 3X strength hook, a thicker diameter hook, and you go ahead and you nose hook your favorite itty bitty soft plastic, that hook is gonna, the actual weight of that hook is going to affect the action of your worm. So this time of the year, when we're talking finesse stuff, I got some different hooks for you guys. These are some of my favorites, okay? I'll link everything down below in the video description. Light wire hooks, okay? You don't need super stout hooks this time of the year. Again, these fish are slowing down. You're not giving a lot of action to your bait. You don't want that hook pulling that bait down. When you do hook that fish and you do fight that fish, they don't fight nearly as hard or as long as fish in the springtime or in the summer, right? They're slowing down, and they just kind of take their time. A lot of times they come right to the boat, so you don't really have to horse them, so you don't have to worry about those hooks bending out. But you want a light wire hook. That Owner Mosquito Light, that thing is lights out. I've caught so many giant spotted bass on that little guy right there, okay? Same thing with your bigger worms. As we start talking about straight tail worms, think about the wire size or gauge of hook you're throwing. Owner Cover Shot, Owner Cover Shot HD. This is my springtime hook. This is my cold weather months hook. Because again, I'm not giving that worm a ton of action to keep that thing up there floating or moving. I don't want that hook to crash that bait down, okay? So, kind of went off on a little bit of tangent about hooks, but understand, you know, if you're throwing a HD hook in the wintertime, if you're not moving that bait fast, it's gonna pull that bait down, okay? So understand that's where you need the different styles of hooks, the different wire strengths, diameters, okay? Last but not least, let's talk about some straight tail worms. So I told you guys I love throwing bait fish size worms this time of the year. Bait fish size, again, even with the Ned rig, right? We're throwing smaller bait fish size. As we get into the Februarys, the Marches, the Aprils, these months, the spring pre-spawn months, that's when I start throwing the full size straight tail worms on a drop shot. If I'm in, let me back up. If I'm in a largemouth fishery, if I'm in a smallmouth fishery, if I'm in a smallmouth or spotted bass or smallmouth fishery, sometimes I'm staying with that small bait fish. It all depends on the bait that they're keying in on. But if I'm like I'm on Chickamauga or Clear Lake or the Delta or, you know, some Texas lakes, I'm throwing bigger baits for bigger fish. I want to catch those pre-spawn fish moving up. That's when I'm throwing the 6-inch worms, okay? That's when I'm throwing these guys right here. It's just a bigger profile, and I feel like as we get into those warmer months, those fish are looking, they want to feed up, right? They want to get up, get their weight up for the spawn, and this is just a lot bigger meal than that little guy right there, okay? So some of my favorites, again, I'll link them down below in the video description. I got a handful out here, but that's the Magic Worm by Missile Baits. Obviously the T-Mac by Netbait. That guy right there by Z-Man. This guy right there by Yamamoto. Okay? Really, really simple. But what I want you to apply to this type of fishing is your actions, right? These actions work really well in the winter, but they work extremely well in the spring. But that's when you're going to go to that Cover Shot HD, right? That guy right there. That's when you're going to want to go to a heavier wire gauge hook. Again, these fish, they're looking at these baits. They're looking to feed up. Let me rig one up for you, just so you guys know how to do this. But that's the Cover Shot HD straight shank worm. On a drop shot, this thing is killer. Again, you can fish this thing around laydowns, stumps, all that good cover that these fish are going to want to pull up to as they're staging for the spawn, right? Let me get this straight for you guys. See that right there? That bait's going to sit right on your rod, just like that. And when you set that hook's going to come right through that bait right there into the roof of the mouth. But soft plastics, guys, there's so many different baits on the market. There's a lot of great baits on the market. But think about, especially this time of the year when it's cold, think about the movement that you're giving your bait. Think about the hook size and how that bait is acting in the water. Guys, I hope this helps. You can go out and grab a pack of worms and fish it 12 months out of the year. you will catch fish. But if you want to catch more fish, start thinking about downsizing, whether it's your worm or your hooks or your line, whether it's your action that you're giving your baits, or colors, right? This time of the year, slow down. I'm throwing mainly bait fish colors. I'm throwing shad colors, electric shad, bait fish colors, or natural colors like green pumpkin, black flake, okay? Electric shad, it's an awesome color by Yamamoto. As we transition into the warmer months, I might go away from just your typical green pumpkins and start throwing some kind of pinks and purples. Just those fish see it better. But guys, I hope this video helps. Again, underwater footage is amazing. Watching these fish come in, examine that Ned rig or examine that drop shot, and either peel off and not eat or come up and suck it up. You learn something from it. And take it from our experience, the highs and the lows of catching fish and losing fish and missing fish and not catching fish. These baits right here, paired with those hooks right there, will help you catch fish all the way through spring. Guys, if you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comment section. I will try to get those as soon as possible. As always, guys, we appreciate the support. Thank you for watching. If you like this type of video, you like underwater footage, you like finesse fishing, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys on the next video.